know how to actually set up our spreadsheet from scratch. We've actually typed in some numbers and some text. I want to show you how to go ahead and create some super basic formulas. A formula is a mathematical calculation you use to actually add up numbers or any kind of math you want to do with the numbers you've got. Let me go ahead and flip over to Excel, and we're going to keep going with our spreadsheet, and we'll add up those sales and those expenses. A couple things just to know about formulas. Formulas can be on the same sheet as the data. In a few minutes, we'll add up our sales and just put the answer right down here. But you may have the data on this first sheet and want to put your answers over on another sheet. You can certainly do that. You can also put your formulas in a totally different file, and we'll be doing some of that a little bit later as we go along. So formulas can be on the same sheet as the data, on a separate sheet, or in a separate file. The thing to remember is wherever you click the mouse, that's where your formula is going to show up. If I click right here, that's where it's going to be. If I click over here, that's where it's going to be. There are a couple of keys on the keyboard that you'll want to be aware of before we start working, because these are going to help you when you're writing your formulas. I'm going to go ahead and pop up a picture of my keyboard so you can see it, and I'll point to some of the keys for you. First of all, if you have a numeric keypad on the right like you see here, you're going to see this plus sign, which is for addition. The minus sign here is for subtraction. You've got this little star, which is your multiplication, and this slash is division. So they're all right together. If you don't have your numeric keypad on the right, you can find these same buttons right up here. Here's your plus. You've got your subtraction, your multiplication, and then you're going to see your division is right down here. You also need to be aware of these open and close parentheses above the 9 and the 0. We'll be using those. And we're also going to be using the caret symbol, which is above your 6 right here. So just be aware of those when you're working, because you're going to be using those to actually do the math. The other thing is, you'll notice there's an equal sign right here. All formulas must start with an equal sign, no exceptions. If you don't have the equal sign, it will not do the math for you. Alright, let's go ahead and write some formulas. I'm going to leave that up for a few minutes, and I'm going to click over here in B6. I'd like to add my sales, and I want the answer to be in B6. That's why I'm going to start there. Remember, I told you that all formulas start with an equal sign. You must type that in. Now what we're going to do is basically add the cells that we'd like to actually have Excel add for us. Now I could type in 150 plus 175 plus 225 and I would get the right answer. The problem is that if I change the numbers in these cells, the answer won't update. Instead of actually typing the numbers, you're going to use the cell addresses. The first one, the 150, is in B3. Notice I can type it, but I'm just going to click here, and that way it inserts it in the cell for me. Now I'm going to type my plus sign because I have another one I'd like to add to this. I'm going to click in B3, and then I'm going to hit plus again, and then I'll click in B4. And that's all I have that I'm going to be adding. If you happen to have a plus sign at the end like this, then you're going to get an error message. I'm going to hit the enter key because I'm finished with this formula. And here's the little error message I just mentioned. It basically says there was a typo. I had that plus sign at the end, and it thinks this would be the formula I do want. It is, so I'll just say yes. And you'll notice now that it has moved me down to the cell below where I was, and I have my answer back up in B6. Now I'm going to click back in B6, and let's go look at this formula. I'm just going to double click in it to get back into it, and you can see it took out that plus sign at the end for me. If you've written formulas a little differently, then that's okay. Just kind of bear with us because we're building from the ground up, so you'll know why you do what you do. Think about this too. If you've got 1,000 numbers you want to add, do you want to go plus B2 plus B3 all the way to 1,000? Probably not. So we'll learn some other ways to write formulas using what we call functions or words that tell it what to do. For now, I'm going to hit the enter key so that I have my answer there. I can do the same thing over in column C. I'll just start with the equal sign. I'll click in C2, hit the plus sign on my keyboard, C3, hit the plus sign on my keyboard, and then C4. And once I'm finished, I'm going to hit the enter key, and you can see I've got the answer of 485. Something I want you to be aware of. 485 is not what's in that cell. That's the result. The formula that you see right up here is what's actually in the cell. Same thing over here. You can see there's a formula in that particular cell. Let's say that I wanted to figure out my profits over here for January. Basically, to do that, I'm going to take my sales minus my expenses. All formulas have to start with an equal sign. I'm going to click on my sales for January and subtract my expenses and just hit the enter key, and you can see that the answer is 25. I can go down the list and do the same thing with each one of these. I can take my February sales minus my expenses. I can hit the enter key and I have 25, and then I'll do one more. We'll say in this case that we take our sales for March and subtract our expenses for March, and in this case we get 15. And if I wanted to figure out the answer down here, I can write the formula the same way I wrote it there. I'll go ahead and put my equal sign in. I'll add D2 plus D3 plus D4, and then I'll go ahead and hit the enter key, and I have 65. That's going to be a quick way to go ahead and write some super basic formulas here so that you can add and subtract some really basic numbers. We're going to go ahead and go now over into section 3, and I want to talk to you a little bit in section 3 about what we call